Same application, but what we're doing is different. The first thing is that up here on the top one, this is where I import the interface from the target map. So these are the business objects that were defined in the target map, right? So these are the hierarchies that we looked at before, the business objects. They come from the target map here. So you import that into the source map. And when you have imported, they pop up here automatically. There's nothing in here that says create a new business object, because this business object structure hierarchy all came from the target map. So that's one side of the source map. Now we need to figure out how we're going to populate these interfaces with data. And just like that we had in the target map, we have metadata. So here I can add a new one. We can have several metadatas, but they look the same here as they did in the target map. But the metadata here now describes what we will receive from the legacy system, what comes from the source system. So a completely different schema here, right? It's got nothing to do with the target system schema. It can be completely different. And if you are in a situation where in your discovery you find out that some data is out here in this folder in some spreadsheets, some are in this legacy system, some are in another legacy system, and so on. You can add as many metadata nodes here as you want and have different schemas available to you. So these are the data you get. And in the business objects, you have the data that you need to produce, right? So now you have to map from one to the other. So if we look, the first thing you can do is you can have views, right? So when you have a view, for instance, the account view, it is a SQL statement. And here we're getting close to some of the stuff you're talking about, right? Here you can write a SQL statement that can utilize data you get from the source system to combine them into a view. And this view can then expose some fields that you can use in your mapping. So here we are 100% full-blown SQL Server SQL statements. Anything you can do in SQL Server, you can do here. Right. So that's one thing you can do. You can create these views so you can kind of pre-process your data from the source system and do some work there. We call it a view, but at the end of the day, in the director, when it executes, it is actually a SQL statement that we execute and we store the result in another table, right? So it's only done once, right? So then we have the result. So when you do the mapping, you have the source metadata at your disposal, and you also have these views that you might have created at your disposal. So what you do, if we go into the account, the top node of account here, here we have the fields that came from the business object in the target map. So this is what the business object has said on its interface. I want you to give me these fields for this account. And what you do on the account business object in the source map is that you point out a root table that you want to start from. And here, with the source key, you say for each distinct value of these three fields, in this view that I created, I want a new account business object. So for each distinct value, you get a business object account here, right? And then in order to get all the information for this account, you need to go out other places as well and pull some data. So here I want to go in another view called customer. And once I've linked the customer to its parent account, I need to say, well, I'm going to use the bank ID and the client ID from the account view to look up a row in the customer view. So then I get the data that I needed from the customer view. And down, right? For the customer, I need to look up another row directly from the source data here. So this is how you compose the extraction from the staging database to get the data that you need right here to populate the fields to send on to the target. So you can see here it's the source value. I go in the account view and pick up the bank ID. Go in the account view, pick up the account number. And down here, I go in the account view and the customer I found there, and I pull out the customer number. You see, this is how you compose your extraction out of the target, the staging database. And then under the account in the target map has this child that's called statement. So if you look at that one, now we're not on the root level. Now we are inside an account. So here we say, well, for each account, I want to go out in this view and I link it to the account. So for each, I look up with these values and I might get a set of rows from the related part table. And for each of these rows, for each distinct value of customer number, I want another statement. I want a child statement under account. So this is how this hierarchy that is exposed by the target map gets populated by the source map.